Hello everyone, how are you all? Hope you all are doing well. So we were doing what? Quick revision from the summary book, the marathon revision we are doing from the summary book. And the summary book is available in my Telegram channel. So chapter number 1 and 2 marathon already available. Please follow the playlist for your attempt. Now we would be starting with chapter number 3, which is charge in GST in module. In our book, it is like levy. 3A, 3B is RCM and 3C is composition, and in module if you see these all three chapters are combined. So quickly we'll start with this chapter here. What is this levy of GST? So if you are supplying, there is an intrastate supply. You tell me intrastate supply, which tax would be levied? CGST plus SGST. In case there is an intrastate supply, which tax would be levied? CGST plus SGST. However, there is an interstate supply. The tax which would be levied is IGST, which is IGST. Then in case of union territories with state legislature, what was the memory technique for that? DJP. What was that? DJP. Delhi, Jammu, Kashmir and Pondicherry. In Delhi, Jammu, Kashmir and Pondicherry, which tax would be levied if you are supplying? The location of supplier and place of supply is in Delhi. The tax that would be levied would be CGST plus SGST. In case of Delhi, Pondicherry, Jammu, Kashmir, the tax that would be levied is CGST plus SGST, because these union territories have their own state legislature. But if you are supplying, for example, the location of supplier is in Delhi, the place of supply is in Mumbai, which tax would be levied? IGST. Now there are 5 union territories without state legislature. What are those union territories? All dash DC. You remember all dash DC was the memory technique. What does it stands for? Andaman Nicobar, Lakshadweep, Ladakh, Dadra Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu and Chandigarh. Okay, so all dash DC. Andaman Nicobar, Lakshadweep, Ladakh, Dadra Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu and Chandigarh. In these union territories, if you are supplying, the location of supplier and place of supplier in these union territories, that means Andaman Nicobar, location of supplier, place of supplier, Andaman Nicobar. The tax that would be levied would be CGST plus UTGST. CGST plus UTGST. But if you are supplying from Andaman Nicobar to, for example, the location of supply Andaman Nicobar, the place of supply, in this case, for example, Mumbai, the tax that would be levied is IGST, because the transaction would be inter-union territory, interstate. Okay. So I hope it is clear. This we have already discussed. Now, you remember we have discussed two sections. One was section 5 of IGST Act, and the one was Section 9 of CGST Act. The levy of CGST is governed by Section 9 of CGST Act. The levy of IGST is governed by Section 5 of IGST Act 2017. So what does it say? When is CGST levied, ma'am? Very simple. If there is an intrastate supply. Which tax would be levied? CGST. Yes, so CGST is levied on intrastate supply of goods as well as services. And IGST is levied in case of intrastate supply of goods or services. It is collected and paid by taxable person. What is outside that? This alcoholic liquor for human consumption. We have studied it many number of times. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption is outside CGST, SGST. It's outside GST only. GST will not be levied on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Which taxes are levied? You remember, we have studied in chapter number 1. State excise on its production and manufacture, and on its sale, what VAT or CST as the case may be. Then what are the rates? The maximum rate for CGST could be 20%, for IGST it could be 40%. Okay, so the maximum rate is 20% for CGST, 20% for SGST. What is the maximum rate for IGST? 40%. So now, what are the supplies on which tax is to be levied on a notified date? So the memory technique for this, you remember PHMNA. In case of PHMNA item, what are PHMNA? Petroleum crude, high speed diesel, motor spirit, natural gas, aviation turbine fuel. What are those items? Petroleum crude, high speed diesel, motor spirit, natural gas, aviation turbine fuel. So in these cases, PHMNA, the tax will be levied from a notified date. Today GST is not levied on this, but yes, at a future date government will assess and government will tell from which date, from a notified date. So on these products currently are not subjected to GST. On these products GST will be levied from a notified date. from a notified date. Okay, so now what tax is levied right now? So we have studied in chapter number 1 on its production and manufacture, central excise, on its sale, VAT or CST as the case may be, VAT or CST as the case may be. Next, tax payable under reverse charge. So this chapter only we are going to study. What was that? On notified goods and services. On notified goods and services, tax will be discharged on reverse charge by the recipient. Generally, on all goods and services, tax is discharged on forward charge or normal charge by the supplier. However, there are certain notified goods, notified services on which tax will be discharged by recipient on RCM. Recipient on RCM. Okay. Next, and this is 9.3 what we have studied. And 9.4 was what? If there is a unregistered person. Unregistered person has supplied to class of registered person. Class of registered person. What? Specified category of goods or services. Specified category of goods or services. So in this case, who will discharge the tax? The tax will be discharged by class of registered person on reverse charge basis. Class of registered person on reverse charge basis. Okay, so this is one thing is notified under this, that we'll see. And then last, ECO. The ECO, what does 9.5 said or 5.5 said? 9.5 or 5.5 said the tax would be paid by ECO if services are supplied through it. All services? No. Notified services. If notified services are supplied through ECO, then tax will be discharged by ECO. I repeat, if notified services are supplied through ECO, tax will be discharged by ECO. Now, if ECO is located in taxable territory, ECO is in India, no problem at all, ma'am. The person liable to pay tax is ECO only. But ECO does not have physical presence in taxable territory. ECO doesn't have physical presence in India. Then in that case, what will happen? Then the person liable to pay is the person who is representing the ECO. The person who is representing the ECO will pay the tax. But if ECO does not have the physical presence nor he has the representative. So if ECO does not have the physical presence nor he has the representative, then he has to appoint one. Obviously for payment of taxes you have to appoint. So if ECO is in the taxable territory, ECO will pay tax. If ECO is not in the ECO is not in the taxable territory, then the person liable to pay tax is the person representing ECO. But if ECO is also not there, representative is not there, then appoint one boss for the purpose of payment of taxes. Okay. And in case of goods imported into India, no CGST, SGST, the tax that would be collected is IGST. The tax that will be collected is IGST. Okay. And in case of import of goods, IGST is collected as per the provisions of Customs Act. However, in case of online money gaming is a specified actionable claim, you know now. In that case, IGST as import of goods will be there without applicability of customs duty. In case of online money gaming, the applicability of customs duty is not there. Okay. Now, who is an ECO? ECO has to pay tax if certain services, notified services are supplied through it. So now, ma'am, who is a ECO? So anyone who operates, owns or manages. What? Three things. Operates, owns or manages. What? Electronic or digital facility or platform for electronic commerce. So anyone who owns, operates or manages. What? Digital or electronic facility or platform for electronic commerce is an ECO. Now, there are few category of services which are notified. If these are supplied through ECO, then ECO is required to pay the tax. Not all the services, only these services. If supplied through ECO, then ECO will pay tax. The first one, transportation of passenger. Boss, you are doing what? Transportation of passenger by radio, taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle, any other motor vehicle. It could be anything. So what you are doing? Transportation of passenger. Transportation of passenger by radio, taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle or any other motor vehicle. So in this case, who will pay the tax? ECO. For example, Ola, Uber. So actual service provider is the driver who is providing the services, but he is providing services through of transportation of passenger through ECO, Ola, Uber. So Ola, Uber would be liable to pay tax. So the service of transportation of passenger by radio, taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle or any other motor vehicle. In this case, who is liable to pay tax? The ECO is liable to pay I hope it is clear. Okay. Next, service by way of, again it is service by way of transportation of passenger, but it is regarding omnibus. The last point was regarding radio taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle, motor vehicle. So any motor vehicle, taxi, cab and all. Second point is regarding omnibus. You are providing service of transportation of passenger only, but by which mode? By omnibus, by omnibus. Except where the person supplying such services through ECO is a company. But if the person who is supplying such services through ECO is a company, then in that case, company is required to pay tax. In that case, company is required to pay tax. So, service by way of transportation of passenger by omnibus, except where the person supplying such services through ECO is a company. So, if ECO is a company, the person providing the service of by omnibus is a company. So, they will discharge. Otherwise, ECO will discharge. Okay. Next, the next point is regarding what? Service by way of accommodation. Which service it is? Accommodation service in hotel, in guest house, club, campus, at other commercial places, meant for what? Residential or lodging purpose. What is the purpose? Residential or lodging purpose. So, what is the service? Service by way of providing accommodation service in hotel, in guest house, club, campus, at other commercial places, meant for residential or lodging purpose. If it is for residential or lodging purpose, then ECO will discharge the tax. For example, there is a Gopi hotel. They are listed on Make My Trip, providing what service of residential or lodging purpose. Who will pay the tax? Make My Trip. Make My Trip. Except registered person. But if there is a registered person, for example, Taj is there. They are listed on Make My Trip. They are registered under GST. Then Taj will pay. Then ECO will not pay. When ECO will pay? Except unregistered person. Okay, I hope it is clear. Next, service of housekeeping. What is the service? Housekeeping, such as plumbing, carpentering. So, what is the service of housekeeping? What is the service? Housekeeping. What? Plumbing, carpentering. Plumbing, carpentering. So, in this case, who will pay the tax? In this case, who will pay the tax? The tax would be discharged by. The tax would be discharged by ECO. In all these cases, the tax is discharged by ECO. Again, except registered person. If the person providing the plumbing service, carpentering service, they themselves are registered. Then they will discharge the tax. But if there are small plumbers and all, they are listed on, for example, urban clap. So, who will pay the discharge, GST? Urban clap. Next is supply of restaurant services. What is this? Supply of restaurant services other than service supplied by the restaurant eating joints located at specified premises. So, first we'll take an example. For example, what you're doing? You're doing supplying restaurant services. So, in this case, who is required to discharge the tax liability? ECO. So, for example, you are ordering masala dosa from Zomato, from a restaurant called Uddupi. So, in this case, who is liable to pay tax? Zomato. Why? It is an ECO, restaurant services supplied through it. However, if the restaurant is located at specified premises, in that case, who will discharge the liability? The restaurant. What does that means, ma'am? What do you mean by specified premises? The specified premises means where any unit of accommodation, the declared tariff of any unit of accommodation is more than 7,500 per day per unit. So, for example, I am ordering a pizza from a restaurant. The restaurant is located in Taj, where the declared tariff is say 10,000 of any unit of accommodation. So, in this case, who will discharge the liability? Taj, not Zomato. Though I am ordering from Zomato, who will discharge the liability? Taj. I hope it is clear. Next, there is one clarification, not very important from this at this point of time. And last in this chapter, what do you mean by intrastate supply? And intrastate supply, you know very well, when the location of supplier, place of supply, LOS, POS in the same state, same union territory, the transaction is intrastate, intra-union territory. In that case, CGST, SGST or CGST, UTGST will be levied. However, when the location of supplier and place of supplier, what location of supplier, place of supplier, to different states, to different union territories, one different state, one different union territory. In that case, the transaction is intrastate. The transaction is intrastate and the tax that would be levied is IGST. The tax that would be levied is IGST. Okay, imports, in case of imports, the tax that would be levied is IGST. When the supplier is located in India, place of supply is outside India. In that case, the transaction is intrastate. The tax that would be levied is IGST. In case of supplies to SEZ, whenever in exam it is given this is supplied to SEZ developer or unit, that always the tax that you need to levy is IGST. In case of supply to foreign tourist, always the tax that is levied is IGST, and the IGST shall be charged on what? On case of all intrastate supply. If there is any supply in taxable territory which is not intrastate supply, it is not covering anywhere. So this is a receipt re-entry. In that case also it is intrastate. In that case also it is intrastate. So this was a very quick discussion on levy part, and we'll stop our discussion for this chapter. Thank you for now.